Mamie belle, la moustache et la capuchon. Casito patanilo, mira tacatiki, 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 mamie belle, la moustache et la capuchon.
What's going on? This is your man John Fortune, your host of the Frustrated Fan Sports Show. And today's show is about the Washington Redskins 2019 NFL Draft. Now, I'm going to start off by saying this. This has got to be the smartest and best draft I've seen by the Washington Redskins since the Dan Snyder era. The fact that I want to give all the credit in the world to, this was Doug Williams' draft. It had to be Doug Williams, and I think the other guy is Kyle Smith, which is AJ Smith's son. To me, this was the smartest draft I've ever seen the Redskins do during the Dan Snyder era as owner of the Washington Redskins. Now, the fact that they held off in moving up, and the fact that Dwayne Haskins fell to him. Like, to me, I feel that the Washington Redskins did an amazing job waiting on guys to fall. And with this one, this is a prime example. This is probably, I guess this is basically the second time that a player of a magnitude fell to the Redskins, because the player was just supposed to go early. So with that, I'm just going to get into some of these guys, and I'm actually only going to show you film of one guy. And the reason I'm going to show you film of this one guy is because, to me, he made me feel like we got a really, really quality player. So let's get down into it. Our first pick in the draft was Dwayne Haskins, who fell all the way to 15. Now, earlier there were reports that the Redskins were looking to move up and all this type of stuff, and I was totally against it. I didn't want to give up draft capital to get any quarterback, much less this guy. I mean, I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback. I just didn't want us to give up any draft picks to go up and get him. So the fact that they held pat, this also tells me that when this draft was going on, that they adjusted as things started to happen in the draft. Like, a lot of the guys that they actually drafted are quality guys. And of the guys they picked, they got at least 4 of them are starters and 3 of them are top end quality backups. So again, like I said, Dwayne Haskins, that was such a great thing. Clearly they weren't going to draft Dwayne Haskins if they weren't trying to move up to get him. Then on top of that, the fact that he fell to him, it was such a smart pick to go ahead and take him, because, again, the only issue, like I've said before, the only issue I had with him was that he wasn't as mobile. He's not a playmaker, I should say. He'll get out the pocket, he'll run a little bit, but once he gets outside the pocket, he becomes less accurate. And that's one of his major flaws that I think more than likely will be fixed once he gets to the NFL, because he's going to learn how to throw on the run, because Jay Gruden, he does a lot of rollouts in this offense. The next thing that was like extremely intelligent about this draft was the fact that you moved back up into the first round and you only gave up second round picks. Like, the fact that you gave up a second round pick in this year's draft and a second round pick in next year's draft, that had to be the smartest move ever, to move up and get Montez Sweat. I mean, that was so brilliant, because, again, we're used to the Redskins giving up so much capital when it comes to trading up and trading down. They used to give up so much stuff, but for once, we actually seen them do something that was so smart that we just couldn't believe it. I mean, when I saw that they only gave up the second round pick for this draft and a second rounder for next year, I felt that this was going to be probably the most intelligent draft I've ever seen the Redskins do. Then after that, they got Terry McLaurin from Ohio State. Now, I'm actually going to show y'all a film on this guy, because The reason why I want to show y'all film on this guy is because this guy right here, he was kind of like forgotten about, because Ohio State had so many weapons there that, you know, they had a bunch of receivers. They had a whole bunch of receivers. And I mean, they had Mike Thomas, they had Paris Campbell, the young guy named Hill. They had so many wide receivers there, and they had so many offensive players there that he kind of got lost. Now, I'm going to show you the tape of this guy, and I want y'all, I'm playing the tape right now. I want y'all to pay attention to how good this guy is. Now, if you look at the tape, you see how aggressive he is after he catches the ball. And then you see that he keeps going for yardage. He keeps getting closer, and he keeps fighting for yards. He catches the ball, he catches it in stride, and he does a great job with getting away. He's a little bit fast. He's faster than what he really looks like. But I'm telling you, this guy is, he fits the mold of what we wanted in a wide receiver. Now, looking at this film, I know a lot of you had the same impression I had when I was looking at his film. This guy reminds you of Pierre Garçon. And to me, this is what we needed in this draft and as a receiver. Now, I love the fact that they went with a receiver that played with Dwayne Haskins, because again, this gives him some familiarity. But not only that, they gave him his most aggressive wide receiver. And I really, really love that. The next guy they took was Wes Martin out of Indiana. Now, I know a lot of people were saying that they couldn't find film on this guy. I'm going to tell you, I found film, but I'm going to tell you how I find film when it comes to offensive linemen. What you got to do is you got to look for film dealing with guys he would probably face. So you would sit up there and you would find film of Indiana playing like Virginia or Michigan, Virginia Tech, Ohio State, and Penn State. You would watch those type of films, because I found film with him for Rashawn Gary. He was in that film. I found film for Draymond Jones. He was in that film as well. So just so y'all know, this guy here, Wes Martin, they gave him an NFL comparable, which was Sean Laval. I know people kind of probably found that a little shaky and stuff like that, but understand that Sean Laval was what he was. Understand he was a free agent that came to us, and he just never learned anything when he was back in Cleveland, when he was back in Cleveland. So to me, even though he looks like Sean Laval. Now let me tell y'all something. Wes Martin, he looks amazing. He's an amazing run blocker. I mean, absolutely amazing. He's devastating and all that. His biggest problem is pass protection. Now, the reason why I say that is because if you see him, if you see any film, I highly suggest you look at the film, the Rashawn Gary film, if you really want to see film on this guy, and look at Draymond Jones's film if you want to look at Wes Martin, because he's number 76, just so you know, if y'all go and look for this film. Just look at how he plays. When it comes to the run, he's devastating. He's nasty. He's a very, very nasty player. And he really gets out there and blocks hard. Now, when it comes to pass protection, he for some reason, he backs up way too far when it comes to pass protection, to the point at where he's almost in the quarterback's lap. So that's something that I'm pretty sure Bill Callahan is going to work with him on, because that's something that he cannot do in the NFL, especially going up against the likes of like Aaron Donald or, anybody that's a big lineman. I mean, hell, some of those big guys that's down in Dallas, Fletcher Cox that's in Philadelphia. We definitely don't want a guy who can give up so much room when it comes to the passing game. But the fact that he's so solid against the run, this is something where I say that this guy can be a very good asset for us. The next guy was Ross Pierschberger. Barker, which is the offensive lineman from Alabama. They had to get an Alabama guy, but this guy made more sense than what you can understand. He's basically an interior offensive lineman, which means that he could play all three. He could play both guard spots and the center spot, which again is actually good for us because we actually need a guy who can do that along the line, a guy who can plug and play, because last year injuries really hindered us, and we had a lot of guys who were trying to play, but they were playing out of position. So for once, we got a guy who can actually play all three positions. So if anybody goes down, you can just plug and play him. That's another thing that's good about him, is that he's actually a plug and play guy. So he's actually pretty good. Now, everybody kind of like had a pause moment when this guy was picked. Cole Holcomb from out of North Carolina. I saw a lot of his games this year because, of course, being on the East Coast, you get a lot of the ACC games, and then being in DC, you get a lot of the ACC games. I saw him play, and I'm going to tell y'all, he's actually going to be a special teamer and a backup. He's not going to be a main starter for us, but I understand why they got this guy, because he's high energy. He doesn't stop on plays, and he plays all the way until the whistle blows. So I understand why they got Cole Holcomb. I'm going to say this. I understand Mac Wilson was out there, but understand this, Mac Wilson, you can't have Mac Wilson on this team. And the reason why is because you got Reuben Foster and you got Sean Hamilton on this team already. You can't bring in Mac Wilson, because if you bring in Mac Wilson, then that disrupts what they already got with the two linebackers that they got here currently. And what they needed to do was draft depth. And this was a depth draft. This was a depth pick right here. They had to get a guy who can come in and just relieve people at times, but not actually be a full-time starter. And not only that, he's going to help a lot on special teams, because a lot of y'all may not remember, but on special teams, we had a hard time tackling on special teams. And this guy is a high-energy guy. Like I said, he doesn't stop until the whistle blows, and that's what makes him a good player. The next guy is a guy that he's an example of bad quarterback play. And it's Kelvin Harmon. Now, again, I told people way before the draft even started, at how awful Ryan Finley was as a quarterback. And this is again an example of, in fact, he's like Juju Smith-Schuster. I'll give you that as a comparable when it comes to how awful quarterback play ends up having a real top level wide receiver fall so far. And Kelvin Harmon is one of those wide receivers. This guy is a massive threat. He can run downfield. He runs really, really amazing routes, and he catches everything that's in his way. So now you're talking about, in this draft alone, we've probably drafted our two starting wide receivers for years to come. Now, again, we got Trey Quinn coming back, but also guess what? These guys give competition to the guys that we currently have. Like both of these guys, they will force Josh Dotson and Cam Sims and Trey Quinn to play. And this is something that we really need, because they're talking about changing the culture of the team. And this is a good example of how you change the culture of the team, by bringing in guys that could possibly take their jobs and make them sit on the bench. And I love this. And Kelvin Harmon, to me, is possibly going to be the steal of this draft for us, because this guy can absolutely flat out play. The next guy they got was Jimmy Moreland, the cornerback out of James Madison. Again, I got to see some of these games because for some reason we get a lot of, in the DC area, we get a lot of no-name games and off-the-wall games and off-the-hinges games. And in this area, we get James Madison, we get Old Dominion, we get all these different games. This guy right here is actually really, really good. I think that a lot of people are kind of scared about his height, but I mean, he's not really that short, but he's a playmaker. Like, I mean, looking at some of his film and when he was playing and some of the games that I saw, he makes plays. Like, he's around the ball really often. And to be honest, this was something that needed to be done as well, because you needed a guy like him to actually be there. Because when you think about what's going on with our cornerback situation currently, we're not sure what's happening right now with Quentin Dunbar. I mean, he has some type of nerve problem that we're not even sure if he's going to come back. And then we got Josh Norman. He just costs too much. Eventually, he's going to be a cap casualty. We're going to eventually have to let the guy go. So in reality, this is a guy that can actually come in and actually probably just learn our system and play very well. He's not a shutdown guy, but like I said again, he can recover very well. I mean, he can run down the field and catch a receiver who's gone past him. And like I said, he's a ball hawk. So I really like him. I'm sorry, I forgot about one other player, Bryce Love. Bryce Love was another guy who fell to us, which again was a smart pickup, because last year he was supposed to came out last year and he was going to be one of the top running backs last year. The fact that he got injured is what dropped him all the way down to where we got him. And to be quite honest, again, this was a smart pickup, because why? You're not really sure what your running back future is going to be. When you think about the fact that Adrian Peterson, yes, he's older. You're not really sure what you're getting out of Geis, especially after he had a major injury. When you think about Chris Thompson, we love him, we like him, but is he going to be a casualty because of play or because of injury? Because he is a guy who's injured pretty often. And then you got I think it's Byron Marshall is the other guy. We actually picked up a running back that was needed. Not only that, I'm going to tell y'all about another running back that we got in as an undrafted free agent, which was really good as well. But I just love what they did. And the last guy that they got was Jordan Brailford. Now he's actually, again, he's a quality backup guy. I really wish they could have gotten Joe Jackson. I liked him a lot better, but Brailford is actually pretty good as well, because Brailford is, he's a steady player. Like, he's fast, but he's not going to give you a lot of splashy plays, but he is a very effective guy. And when you got this type of guy as a backup, you're talking about a quality backup you're going to get. You know, with Montez Sweat, he's a speed guy and things like that. There's going to be times where, like, Ryan Kerrigan is going to be relieved. We're eventually going to have to get to a point at where we have to give Ryan Kerrigan more rest to extend his career. And this guy right here, this Brailford, is actually the right guy to possibly give Ryan Kerrigan the rest he needs so that he can have as much energy and push when he comes back in the games. And this guy's actually a really good fit for that. Now, the running back that they got, I think his name, I think you say Aca'Cedric Ware. Aca'Cedric Ware is a tall running back. He's also really fast. Now, again, he played at USC. They didn't have a really good offensive line last year, but the year before, he was a really, really good player. And with him being tall, he's also a really good catcher out of the backfield. So the fact that they got two running backs in Bryce Love and Aca'Cedric Ware, they are actually looking towards the future with this running back position, and they're trying to do everything they can to get the ball out of Dwayne Haskins' hands. And I have to say it, y'all. To me, I'm not mad at all. This is one of the first frustrated fan shows where you don't hear me frustrated at all. And I have to admit, this was the most intelligent draft that we've had since Dan Snyder has been owner. Now, I also want to say this. Don't listen to those BS reports that said Dan Snyder took over the draft. No, he didn't. This was Doug Williams and Kyle Smith all on their own. They did this draft because, and you can tell they did this draft because of the fact that they were patient. And at the same time, they sat up there and they waited for guys to fall to them. They didn't rush up to grab guys. And not only that, they actually picked up more picks. I'm not sure what they got next year, what they picked up for next year, but they actually got really, really quality guys. So again, A+ for this draft, A+ for the Redskins. I'm happy with what they did in the draft. Everybody needs to calm down. They probably got maybe 4 quality starters out of this draft, and they got a bunch of depth. And I have to admit, man, I'm really, really happy and excited about this. So I'm your man, John Fortune, and this has been the Frustrated Fan Sports Show.